Welcome to Heart, where we break the silence, bridge the gaps, and bring real conversations about mental health to the forefront. I'm your host, Lee Yaffe, founder and director of The Long Short Road. Hi, Dr. Brown. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It's really a pleasure to be in conversation with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just want to say for the audience that I love that we bonded over our shared Lego building obsession
Yes.
camera. That
Yeah.
was awesome.
I
So
think that price says a lot. We can analyze that
we can
later.
analyze that later. So I actually like to start the show by asking our guests to introduce themselves in their own words. Like I could read back your bio to you, and it's a beautiful, impressive bio. I want to hear, like, in your words, who are you?
Thank you. Well, I would say I'm a wife, a mother of four, a in-law mother of another four because they are like my children, although they have wonderful parents, and I'm a grandmother, a softie to seven. So I think that that's my most important and guiding role. And if I could do nothing else in this world but raise them well, then and raise them to serve, then I've done my job here. I work as the Provost at Yeshiva University for Values and Leadership. I'm a graduate of YU of Stern many years ago, and I come back in 2022, and I run the Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks Herenstein Center for Values and Leadership. I was a student of Rabbi Sacks's. Rabbi Sacks was a disciple of the Rebbe. His guidance from the Rebbe is very important in framing and directing his life. So it's been an honor to promote his legacy and help others think about who he is. And I'm a writer. That's me.
Beautiful. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. So I guess the question I'm going to ask first has two, well, maybe it's the same question. What is your why? Like, what drives you to parent the way you parent, live the way you live, lead the way you lead, write the way you write? Like, what is the driving force behind why you do what you do?
Wow, that's a big question, and I'm gonna give two answers.
Okay.
One of them is deeply rooted in my family history. My mom is a child survivor of the Holocaust, and my grandparents were survivors of Auschwitz, and they all found each other after the war. And I would say that when you realize the miracle of your family, then you realize, oh, I have to give back. There's some reason that I'm here, and it's my job to think about that reason and to fight against forces of evil and promote forces for good in whatever way I can.
Oh,
Not that I can. I'm just a small person. I'm not even a tall person, so I don't even have that advantage. But I do feel that that's been a big driver for me. Is what does it mean to grow from ashes and to make move from the oi to the joy and make sure that people feel that transition. Certainly in the work that I do. And I would say the other piece is, and I'll give a mystical analogy that Moses was called this kli of God, this vessel. And if you look at what a vessel is, a vessel holds something else, right? And I feel that in the work that I do, particularly in teaching or mentoring, informally and formally, is like trying to give people a space in which to shine. Um, and the vessel, the inherent or essential quality of a vessel is that it holds things, but it also has to be strong. The sides have to be strong. So I always feel like I'm emptying myself to help other people shine and grow. And that also requires a strong self because sometimes it's a hard job.
you could say that again. I remember once I appreciate so much the description of the Kaylee and how it has to be strong. I remember saying to someone once, someone complimented me on the role that I played in a young person's life. And I was like, oh, I'm just the Kaylee. I just like said it. It was like, the Kaylee has to be able to hold
Yeah.
the what's inside. If the Kaylee
Yeah.
has holes, then it's no good to anybody.
No, it's no good to anybody. It falls apart. You think about something that sort of disintegrates because it can't handle the pressure. It can't stand up. The Talmud says, kshot et atzmacha, you know, grow yourself, change yourself. A kishut is a decoration, like sort of decorate, enlarge, expand, enhance the self, and then kshotet achirim, then you'll have the ability to do that for others.
Oh. Can I ask you how you do that for yourself?
Well, I would say probably in a few ways. I would say there's the writing part of me, which is, I wake up early to write so that before the world comes in, I'm in a very creative place. And because I write on Jewish topics, I make my blessings over the Torah and my morning brachot blessings before I write so that I feel that I'm framing the day in like some sense of holiness. And then the writing is a filler for me. Even when I was the mom of young children who wake up early, and I would try to wake up earlier. And I felt like when I was creatively full, and that's true for work too. Work makes lots of administrative demands and supervising people and helping people. And so, like when I filled the tank, I was just in a much better place. I would say filling the tank for me also has been about working out
Mm,
every day and building physical stamina. And I've been thinking a lot and writing. I just started a Substack in the summer called Sacred Stamina, .substack.com. Join me, where I've been thinking a lot about strength, particularly for women, and how you build strength and also what depletes strength.
right.
So I would say working out is important to me because we're embodied and we need to, if we don't take care of the body.
And it's interesting. It's so interesting. It's so funny because I'm thinking about the other question I wanted to ask you, but I want to stay here because this is so important. I think, especially as women, and I can't speak for other people. I can speak for myself, but I do know this is true from people I'm hearing it from out in the world that women tend to operate from a place of depletion and burnout almost like as a badge of honor. Like our compassion fatigue is a badge. My compassion fatigue is a badge of honor. I'm
Right.
learning it shouldn't be,
Right.
honestly, the hard way, right? When your body breaks down, you're like, "Oh, right, I can't actually take care of other people right now."
Right.
But it's really, I don't know. Could you speak to that a little bit? Like, do you think is there a reason why women lead that way in their own lives? How can we empower them to make changes?
Yeah, I think that, you know, women's ambitions are often suspect. I have a book right here. Let's see, Women in Leadership. It's a collection of essays from Harvard's Business Review. There you go, Women in Leadership. And there's an article about women's ambition, and it's written by, I believe, a psychiatrist or a therapist who said that she sees women who describe their childhoods as filled with ambition for themselves. Then when they're older, it's sort of it's deemed as selfish. And since we're socialized to serve others rather than serve the self, we have a lot of advantages. I think I'll say that not only of women, but men who are other oriented, I think have a lot of advantages. Adam Grant wrote a terrific book, Givers and Takers, where he talks about, it's true that takers have, in the short term, develop relationships that may be more transactional and beneficial for them, but in the long term, the people we trust are the people who have an other orientation, who are givers. And I think there are a series of questions we have to ask ourselves when we overgive. We also deplete other people from their capacity to give.
Right. We're taking away their agency.
Yeah. Yeah, we're taking away their agency. I'll make soup for everybody. But when I need a soup, no, 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 don't bother,
Right.
don't worry about it.
Right.
So I think part of that is if you're asking for, practical solution is ask for help. And I think I learned a lot about asking for help.
The simplest and also I think the hardest,
The
right?
hardest, but you know what? People love to help other people. I do believe that because I believe in the best of humanity, and I think we don't give them enough opportunities when we're in the giving position
Yeah.
um, to allow someone else to give. So instead of seeing it as selfish, I'm taking, it's I'm giving you an opportunity to give. And I feel the same way, by the way, when I ask people for tzedakah, right? Sometimes I'll collect it for, an unusual case that comes to me discreetly. I always feel thank you for the opportunity. I might not want the particular opportunity you're giving me, but I
Right.
appreciate that you saw me as someone who's a giver. And I'm grateful that I can be someone who's a giver.
Right. And that's true. We do feel good giving back to other people.
Sure, sure.
It's,
It fills the cup.
it
It
fills the
fills the
cup.
cup.
It does fill the cup, but we're much more reluctant to give and to, I mean, to ourselves and also to receive.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to go back to linking your explanation of your why to the one of the questions I wanted to ask you about your book Morning Has Broken Faith After October 7th. So
Mhm.
you describe this why that runs through you of when you come from ashes, it's like, the life you have, like it's being in the position that you're in, it's like you're here for a reason. And I mean, I could speak for myself, but again, I can like also think collectively from people I've spoken to. I don't think any of us ever thought that October 7th was something that could happen to us. Like, okay, yes, of course, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. My father, right? My father's parents were Holocaust survivors. In my head, I was like, okay, that's something that is said and done, and that's not going to happen to us, and it did.
Yeah.
And I think we're all completely different people. Like, I think about who I was before October 7th and who I am now, and you can't even like there's just like a very, very distinct split between those two people.
Mm.
So, and I also just want to say, and I know I told you this off camera, but I just want to thank you here on the recording for giving language to how I felt after October 7th. Like being a Jew in America, kind of feeling, I mean, like relationships with colleagues ended. I ended my relationship with my therapist over comments she made, a therapist I had been with for 6 years,
Oh
over
God.
comments that she made about October 7th in session. Like, really, her just,
Yeah.
I mean, like, October 7th was one level of catastrophe, absolutely catastrophic heartbreak. And I feel like every heartbreak that has come after has just been like it's just like another heaping ball of fuel on top of the dumpster fire that we're living through. And so all of that is to say, when you wrote Morning Has Broken, the war was still ongoing.
Yeah.
And now we're, I guess you could technically say at the end, because I don't feel like we're at the end. I feel
No, I
like
don't think
we're
we're at
just
the end.
starting.
We're in the post-hostage phase.
Right. So my question with that long lead up was, how are you seeing our nation right now? Like, what are you seeing from your position, coaching, teaching, leading? Like, how are people? I guess the simple way to put the question.
I think wars do unusual things to people. Depending on where you are, there are people on the front lines who just simply can't talk about it.
Right.
They've lost friends, and we all know people, some people in our own families, our own friends who've lost children in the war, and that will forever scar them and scar all the people who love them. And then there's what it means to be, an active outsider to this, which is, being a diaspora Jew who supports Israel, even critical of the government, but supports Israel as the entity and the great Jewish project of the Jewish people for the past 2,000 years. And then I think that there are groups of people who are accidental Jews in this moment. In other words, they became much more aware of their Jewish identity
Right.
because they were forced to, because outsiders forced them to.
Right.
And I think in some ways that catalyzed an amazing spiritual journey of belonging. I
Right.
didn't know that I belonged.
Right.
Um, but I think for others, it's been very alienating, feeling like doors are closed for me. You had the strength to, break up with a therapist or other people. Maybe it might have been
Right.
offensive. But I imagine that wasn't an easy thing for you to go through, Lee.
Definitely not.
And I imagine someone maybe without your sensitivities and maturity would find it very, very hard to speak up with conviction.
Right.
And I think even if we're over um, the war's unleashed a tsunami of anti-Semitism and hate.
Yes.
And I think we all walk in the world and wonder, oh, do you hate me?
Right. Am I safe here?
Am I safe here?
Yeah.
Where would I go? Who would hide me? I mean,
Right.
these are questions that lurk within us because we have historic triggers, and those triggers are thousands of years old. So, I think it's hard for people to understand that. So that someone once said to me, every time you have a negative encounter with someone, 10% is that encounter, and 90%
It's,
is everything that happened beforehand.
it's what your nervous system remembers.
Yeah, what your nervous system, the body keeps the score.
Right.
I think that we have sort of a genetic capacity for adaptability because we've moved so much. And we're also triggered by oppression and hate and persecution, as anyone would be. But
Right.
for us, it's like sediment, it's just layers and layers and layers. So I think we're carrying all of that
Yeah.
with us in this moment.
Yeah.
Um, and Rabbi Sacks, used to say, non-Jews respect Jews who respect Judaism.
Right.
And I want to be that Jew,
Yeah.
and I want to be unafraid. I also will say internally, there's been so much dissension, so much lack of unity. The war created unity right away
Like a hot minute.
for a hot minute,
Right. We're
where
past that already.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a beautiful time of giving, and I don't think that chesed, those bonds are different. I think they're still there, and when we need to call upon them, we can call upon them. But I think there's a lot of disunity, and I think the political discourse, the partisanship, has been very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that people are just dividing themselves along political lines. I won't have you at my Shabbat table because
Right.
you vote this way or you think this way.
Right.
You must be that type of person. Don't you care about this issue? And my Jewish life has never felt that way, but in the past, I would say decade, it's felt that way, and in the past, year or so, it's felt even worse. So I think it's an uncomfortable place.
Yeah. We really are in an uncomfortable place. And one of the, it's just, it's also on one hand, we are the kind of people where we move forward and we build and we grow and we're resilient. And also it just, I think maybe because of the lack of unity, it's just it feels harder to be resilient now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think we used a lot of language of resilience without giving people the tools for resilience. We tell us how you're feeling. And I feel like I'm a victim, and we indulge that victimhood.
Right.
And what we did is we deprived a lot of people of strength,
Right.
of seeing Judaism as a strong compass, moral compass building approach to the world.
Yeah.
I read Letters for Life. We were just talking about it briefly before we got on. There were visionaries, and I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe was among them. And I don't mean as a Jewish visionary, and I don't even mean as an ambassador for religion generally. I mean a visionary in the whole world
Right.
of saying, there's go spread yourselves around the world. That's the Genesis sort of be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, right? Go everywhere, be seen everywhere, and help people everywhere, wherever they're suffering. And he had a very keen sense in the 50s about mental health. And here we are, so many years later, reading his words and realizing their relevance for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you describe or how would you define resilience? And what, what you were saying about and recognizing our pain is different than indulging in our pain, and that's not resilience. But
Right.
that's what we've been doing. So then what is it?
Right. So I read a definition in an article that was about educational leadership that said resilience isn't bouncing back, it's bouncing forward.
Hmm.
And I love that idea. In other words, it's not saying what I need to do is get back to the baseline where I was, because
Right.
that baseline may or may not have been a great baseline, right? And it was if you say, where were the Jewish people on October 6th?
Hmm.
There were huge protests going on in Israel about judicial reform, right? That was not a happy summer
No.
for us as a people
Right.
in Israel, and also there's been huge breakage of institutions we hold dear in the United States. And I'm just going to put this out there: we're in an immigration crisis right now, where whatever side you are on the political spectrum, where families are being pulled apart, and we have to imagine for a second that 50, 60, 80 years ago, those might have been our families being pulled apart. What is the museum of the future going to say about the moment we're in now? And I
Mm.
think a lot of it is we just weren't resilient enough because we talked too much about feelings
Right.
without giving people the tools to actually say, yeah, I could feel uncomfortable in the moment, but you know what? Discomfort is the mechanism of growth.
Hundred-
Comfort comfortable people don't grow.
Right.
How do we grow from this? How do we say, you can handle this, right? You can do hard things. You must do hard things.
Absolutely. And that I think is for me, being in the mental, like having my boots on the ground in the mental health field, an issue that I'm seeing a lot is exactly what you're describing, that we have people who are, we're being told, feel your feelings. I believe in feeling your feelings,
Mm.
but what's the next step that we take past feeling your feelings?
Yeah,
If, that's to quote my I mean, I don't know that mentor. Yeah, I consider him a mentor, Daniel Siegel. He talks about the experience of like being really open and saying, bring it on.
yeah,
Whatever comes my way, I can handle it. Whatever I'm going to face, I can be that person who can meet that moment. But we're not teaching people that.
right. So it's interesting. The poet Rumi has a beautiful poem. I have it. I thought I had it here, but I
The
probably have
guest
it
house?
downstairs. The guest house,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, the guest house. In other words, we're inviting people. People show up at our door. Things show up at our doorstep. We don't invite only the guests who are the friendly, thoughtful, warm people, right? We invite everybody in, and everyone finds a place within, and they stay there. And sometimes they stay there for a short time. Sometimes they stay longer. Sometimes there are people living in our brain rent free for decades.
yeah,
And we have to figure out how to evict said people. Um, but I think that what we're going to see now, and I don't like the way this is happening, but I think hopefully the outcome will be you need to be tougher to live in the world that we're in right now.
yeah,
And we didn't create toughness. We didn't value toughness. In fact, we devalued toughness. And I've tried to spin that, and in the work that I'm doing on stamina, which I'm calling a sacred stamina, sacred stamina, the spiritual wisdom for women who do too much, but it's women and men saying, depletion is not a goal,
right,
right? Being strong is a goal. If you
right.
lift weights, as you're lifting, you're going, this feels uncomfortable. If it's not uncomfortable,
You're
you're
not
probably
doing it
getting
right.
nothing out of it, right? And
Right.
then you realize what it's helping me do is assess what, that let's say each week or each month, as I am physically stronger, what I'm telling myself is I can handle more.
Handle it. Bring
I
it up.
can, right, I can handle more. There's this thing, I wrote about it in my Substack. I think it's called the craw, which is like, a woman's hand, which holds a million things, right? So I'm holding a pocketbook, and also I have a banana, and I have a hand cream, and I have keys, and I have, right? So it's like, at what point, and it became like a TikTok thing that, people would, how much could I hold? And
Right.
you know what? I have a new game. How much can you put down?
And you put down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much can you put down? Put that stuff down, because you know what's going to happen? If you don't move slow enough and strongly through the world, everything's a rush. You lose things. I lose things all of the time, Lee. I'm a loser. I lose things. People are always shocked. They're like, no, that can't be, because I do have strong executive function in certain arenas of my life.
Right.
But if you ask me where my gloves are, I think I've lost already 3 pairs this season, and I wear leather gloves. So you do the math.
Right. It, I mean, totally relate to the losing things. Definitely a loser of items. But I want to stay on this for just another moment because I feel like we've, we have let go of tension and we have let go of toughness and there has to be that resistance. Like, right. When I lead, trauma-informed expressive writing classes. That's my favorite thing to do in the organization. Like, if I could do that full time and let somebody else do the crisis management work, like that's what we're working up to. But
Right. Right.
I lead these classes, and we use Natalie Goldberg's book, Writing Down the Bones, as our that's the writing method we use. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, this isn't always going to feel like a cakewalk. Sometimes it's going to feel super uncomfortable and you're going to hate every moment of it, but you're going to feel better having done it. The
Right.
same way that when I go for a run, sometimes I hate it the whole time, but I feel better having run.
Right.
And then I have more energy to give to other people.
Yeah. 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 I think if you think of dedicating your workout to something, And
Right.
that sounds silly. Like sometimes we dedicate our, hopefully all the time, we dedicate our prayers, right? Our tefillot. We might say, I'm dedicating this prayer because I want someone to get healthy, right? So sometimes like I'm dedicating my workout to, to a grandchild who I'm going to watch later today, and I need to have the energy for that. Or I feel that I'm trying to do God's work in whatever way capacity. So I'm dedicating this, and that can help in terms of feeling this isn't selfish time. When people go, "Oh, you exercise, that's your me time," I'm like, "No, my me time is no. My me time would be sitting on a couch with a good book and a great piece of Cadbury's fruit and nut chocolate. That's me time, right? Um, Working out is the preparatory time
Right.
so that I have the energy to do the things that I'm here to do in the world."
Right. I really appreciate the timing in which we're having this conversation is so ashgacha pratis because I'm leading a parenting group later and I'm going to tell them that verbatim. Like they need to hear it that way.
Okay,
You know,
great.
giving if we because that's the thing. How can you give if you're depleted?
Yeah.
You know? Um, so one other question that I wanted to ask you on the frame of like how we're doing in the world and also connected to Mourning Has Broken. You dedicated one of the chapters is called Giving Thanks, and you
Mm.
list all of the things that you're grateful for during the time of war. Something that I find to be very common for people, especially in the world we're in right now, is that gratitude feels very triggering for people. Like how,
Really?
yeah, like how can they? I think it's maybe also from the perspective of like, when someone is doing their, I see a lot of people who are like in the depths of their like healing work and they're uncovering a lot of stuff about themselves and working through trauma. Like for them to find gratitude can feel very triggering. So
Mm.
maybe that's just like the scope from the perspective I'm seeing it in like my network and my community. But I mean, to be honest with you, gratitude can also be triggering for me. Like I remember
Can you
after October,
explain that?
like sitting with a Tehillim in my hands. So just to frame what October 7th was like in my house, we're in Philadelphia. I had a newborn baby. She was 6 weeks old. We had just spent um a week, including Yom Kippur, in the NICU with her because she had RSV and she almost died. Thank God she's a great, beautiful, amazing, healthy kid, but like it was terrifying. And then I was, 6 weeks postpartum, and then October 7th happened. And I remember sitting on my couch with a Tehillim in my hands and I couldn't even bring myself to open it. And I felt such anger.
Mm.
And I feel like the trauma of it and the world's reaction to it made it very difficult for me and for many people I know to find those anchors of gratitude.
Right.
And I'm finding that to still be the case for a lot of people I'm talking to. So maybe it just happens to be like the 30 or 40 people that I'm speaking to on a regular basis, that's where they're at. But I guess I'm asking the question for them, if it's only those people, then, Dayenu. But
So I guess with age, um, I've come to appreciate that the great projects of life are long-term projects.
right,
And faith is one of those great projects. And emunah is not something that's like static, right? In other words, if you think of an EKG, right? If they had an emunah KG, right? In other words, like you had for your emunah, not only for your heartbeat, right? And there are times where it spikes, and you think, "Wow, I feel so blessed in this moment." And then there are times where, where it's lower and where there's a little concern. Oh, we're concerned about your blood pressure, right? We're concerned about, you know, where are you right now? But the machine keeps moving, right? And I think I was reading it came up on my feed, so I've been listening to a book by Daniel Chidiak called "Stop Letting Everything Affect You."
okay,
And I just want to advise that for people who feel that they're just being affected by lots of different things that are taking them away from the from feeling good or special or extraordinary or and he talks about having a worry time.
mm,
You have a worry time every day. So you go, you know what? I between 4:30 and 5 is my worry time, let's say. I have not implemented this yet. So I just need to say that, Lee. But having a worry time where you say, I'm feeling bad right now. It's 10:30, but I'm going to deal with that at 4:30 so
Right.
that I put it somewhere in some container so that it doesn't go everywhere.
Right.
Um, Many years ago, I wrote a Haggadah. It was really one of my favorite writing projects. And I looked at Shvo Chamatcha, which is really like a seeking revenge, and it's angry, and God, seek justice on our enemies. So I wonder, like, it's three verses, it's three biblical verses, that's all it is. And it comes at the end of the Seder. After you've had a meal, you're full, things are good. And then we're allowed, when we're in that space of confidence and security, then we're allowed to let off some steam. In fact, if we don't let off some steam, if we
It'll
don't have a
boil over.
valve,
Right.
right, it boils over. So you say there is, and I get upset by people who change the language, shvoch ahavatcha ala goyim, pour out your love. And of course we should pour out love, but there are also moments, and I think post October 7th was one of them, where we actually feel the world's betrayal.
Right.
And if you or friends of yours or people you're working with feel like I still feel so angry, we're not done with it. And we're the hate is spewed, and
Still there.
it's
Right.
it's like lava. It's everywhere. It's still coming. We're almost not surprised by the
Right.
awfulness of it. And at the same time, I'm a creature in the world, but I'm also God's creature. So I have to thank God for my creatureliness, right? Because I also wake up to the manifold blessings of my life. And I think when people can't see that, that's allowing that's allowing pain to have too much of a role, right? It's not at 4:30 to 5.
Right.
It's all day,
Yes.
all the time.
Right.
How can you be a good parent? How can you be a loving friend?
How could you function in the world?
Yeah, how do you get up in the morning? And I think there are people who say, well, if you can get up in the morning, that's dishonest. Uh, and I think because you do the work, I mean, the holiest work of all, suicide prevention. I really mean that, Lee. Like,
Thank
I
you.
understand that sort of, you fell into it and then it became a larger part of your work. That
Yes.
is pikuach nefesh all the time. So as you were saying, I had a daughter. My daughter was born and was in the NICU. My daughter is a neonatologist. She was working in the NICU during COVID,
Oh,
right? So I think to myself, like, what a blessing it is to have a daughter who can take care of people like your daughter. So there's so many ways to frame things,
right.
and that's the job of life, is you're a framer.
Right.
Like you take painting in to get framed, right? You're the framer.
Right.
What are you going to leave in? What are you going to leave out? What are you going to crop?
Right. And it's interesting what's coming to mind for me, the connection I'm making as you're saying all of this is it's the title of one of Viktor Frankl's books of essays that was published in English for the first time, I think in 2018. The title of the book was Yes to Life in Spite of Everything.
I
And
haven't
I
seen it.
it's so beautiful.
Oh, good.
And it was really, I don't know, sometimes like all the time, I feel like, especially with books, I feel Hashgacha Pratis of like when Hashem kind of drops them into my life. It's like, here, this is what you need to be reading right now. And at that moment, it
We
was
also call that a librarian, but
right.
if you have a good librarian in your life,
Um, but I feel like we have, I don't know, I'm just seeing a lot of people who have stopped realizing that they can say yes to life in spite of all of the pain,
you
which
have to. You
so
have
there is so much of it. Like, we are living in very volatile and distressing times. Like we can't ignore
but
that.
we can withdraw.
Right.
I mean, I think a lot about the work that Rabbi Sachs did in his life, working with other faith groups, working with people in significant government positions. What he was saying is you don't withdraw from life when life gets challenging. You don't say, I can't influence the world. You say, now I have to influence the world.
Right.
What happens if I decide, as a result of anti-Semitism, that I don't care about the world? I only care about my people. And I understand that that is a totally rational decision. But I don't think God wanted us to fill the world so that we could withdraw from the world when it doesn't suit us. I think God puts us in the world so that we can work on the problems and find allies and partners,
Right.
especially when it gets hard. Because we are going to get over this. And the question is, how are we going to get over this? I have to share with you, Lee, the amount of money that's being poured into anti-Semitism right now. It has not stopped anti-Semitism. And had that money been poured into Jewish education, into therapy,
Yep.
I mean, there's so many areas of healing and growth
Right.
that instead of investing it in hate, and any philanthropist who's on this call, Give me a call anytime. Anytime. I'm happy to talk
Oh.
you through.
Right. No, because it is, we are, I do see how we've gone too far in that direction of like not fo again, it goes back to not focusing on our resilience and our strength and building that distress tolerance. You know,
Right.
I have my window of tolerance and the laminated thing in the back, so I like see it there. I'm like, right, we have to have larger ability to tolerate the distress
Well,
that
I
we
think also feeling out of control. Part of this is feeling out of control. What's going to be thrown at me tomorrow?
right,
What news am I going to see when I wake up? What now? That's also, but I can control that. I don't look at the news. I don't look at my phone for the first hour, hour and a half of the day, right? Because I don't want to walk into the world reactive. I want to walk into the world creatively, and so those are decisions we make. How much do we let the world in? And then when you see like, wow, it's having a terrible effect on me. So can you turn off the news?
right.
So can you find a different group of people to talk to, or you're just in that cycle of sadness and trauma?
It's like, the I saw a reel of like, a line of matches in a row and you light it on fire. And as the fire is coming, you take one match out and it stops.
Mm,
Like
wow.
and you could step out at any time. Like you could see the fire coming.
Right. Yeah.
You
That's
could
a
see the
great
intensity
image.
coming. Yeah.
It's a great image. I appreciate that. I'm gonna hold on to that image.
Sometimes my scrolling on Instagram yields good results.
Hey, great.
Um, so I actually want to ask you how you define faith and what and as a follow-up question, what does your relationship with Hashem look like when you're going like how do you I guess actually the question I'm asking is it possible to feel angry at God and still have a relationship with him?
Um, I think so. I think when you're in a covenantal relationship with God or with anyone, right, in marriage, you say, because I'm angry at you, but I'm in a covenant with you, the covenant is going to overtake the anger. In other words, I can only be angry with you so long. And I think that's very biblical, right? The idea that, God is angry for a particular reason, but God's compassion overcomes the anger. And we're always asking for God's compassion, but we also have to be worthy of the compassion. And I think about emunah that way of and I think of that in the leadership development work I do with students, particularly undergraduates, who've had a lot of privilege, many of them. You say, are you worthy of the privilege that you've been given? And what does worthiness look like? To me, faith is about walking in uncertainty with the belief that someone is holding you.
Yeah.
For me, that's a concentric, those are concentric circles of being held, right? Am I being held by God? Am I being held by my spouse? Am I being held by my children? Am I being held by my friends, by my students? In other words, my community. I'm so grateful to be an Orthodox Jew because I could move anywhere in the world where there are the Jews and feel, oh, there's somewhere to go. There's
Right.
someone to talk to. There's someone who's going to make me a dinner and there's someone I can make dinner for. There's someone I can visit and there's someone who will visit me. So I feel held up all the time.
Yeah.
And that's emunah, I think belief in God without belief in humanity is not real belief in God because God created us and God created the world, and we're not the only ones in the world. And if God says, Adam, Chava, you're the stewards of my world, look at the trees, look at the animals, look at other people, right? All of Breshit is a lesson in an accountability. How am I accountable? How do I put everyone in a garden and say, you're gardeners now?
Right.
Take care of each other and take care of the plants. And if you do that, you'll live forever here.
Right. Right. So how do we come back to that? I know that's a big question for the amount of time we have, but like how do we create that? Because we are like even just looking at our nation, we are very divided. Like yes, we had that like, golden couple of moments after October 7th, but I feel like we've, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, like we're not there right now. So
No.
how do we get there?
It's a great question, but I've been thinking about an image recently, a fantastic word, murmuration. A murmuration is when a group of birds, usually starlings, fly in synchronicity.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see, especially at dusk, all of a sudden there's this huge
Yeah.
fight. And it's like, wow, that looks like an Olympic training ground. How long did it take you guys to do that? And there's no leader in it, which
Yeah.
is fascinating and a murmuration. And I think we as a people need to know, birds don't fly that way all the time. They fly that way some of the time, and it's short-lived, and then they go their own ways. But it's important to feel I'm part of something that's larger than myself,
Right.
that helps me to soar.
Right.
And I think that, to get back to the gardening metaphor, is sort of saying, what does your garden look like right now? Is it shriveled? You haven't tended it. You've been so upset that you just let it go. Or do you feel like, oh, this is a green place. This is a serene place. This is a place with fruit and it's nourishing me and I'm nourishing it. And I think people need to hold up images in their minds of what life looks like when it's good and say, what is my job? You know what? Today I'm not feeling great. I can't mow that lawn, but I could plant a seed, right?
Right.
And then I might say to you, Lee, how's your garden look right now?
Honestly, it's snowy and I can't even see what the garden looks like. It's totally wintering right
Yeah,
now.
it's wintering.
Right.
And wintering is an important hibernating stage. And maybe it's also a mashal, right? That I'm not going to be able to see my garden, but I have to have faith that it's going to grow. In Eov, I think one of the most beautiful verses in Job is Ki yesh la'etz tikva. A tree has hope. A
Oh,
tree, right? A tree revitalizes itself. And even when you think it can't revitalize, I've been through people, and you certainly in the line of work you do, you've been with people at their lowest point, and they think, I lost so and so to cancer. I will never smile again. I will never laugh again. I will never be myself again. And then a year or two later, you see the same smile that you saw before.
right.
You see some redemptive hug. You see regrowth. And that's what we're made for. We
Right.
just have to give ourselves time.
Right. And change is possible. I think that's the something that I
Change
just
is inevitable.
right. Change is inevitable and it will happen. I think also being in this line of work when people are in their darkest, it's very difficult to believe that there is a light at the other end of the tunnel.
Right. But
That,
if you've done it before,
right,
and if you've seen it happen before, it doesn't mean it's going to happen for the same way. And that's, again, long-term projects.
right.
Life is a long-term project. And unfortunately, in our easily distracted culture where someone says, I just learned this recently, that there are film schools where they won't show a whole movie because people can't watch a whole movie anymore.
Oh gosh.
Um, and
That doesn't say something about the state of the world, and I don't know what does.
right. But look at at the phone and the text and like everything is short and quick. And then you have to say the things in life that are beautiful, they're the long-term projects,
Right,
right? They're the tapestry and just one stitch at a time.
right.
You're not raising children. It's not a party every day.
No,
It's not
God,
a party every day. And again, you have those windows where it's really, really hard, and then the glimpses into the glory of parenting, and that happens also. But it's not going to happen all the time. I don't think we've prepared people. We haven't prepared people for the indignities of work, right?
right,
You're not going to love every moment. So
right,
you're going to go to meetings and they're going to be boring, and you're going to do some work, which is drudgery, but
right,
you're going to slowly build up. No, I don't like it. I'm quitting.
right.
I think the message of Judaism is we didn't quit. And because we didn't quit, we're still here doing amazing things and we'll continue to do amazing things.
Yeah. And we didn't quit when it was hard or messy or boring or frustrating or dangerous.
Some people did.
Some people
Some,
did. Okay. Three rapid fire questions, lightning round questions, if it's okay, before we go.
sure.
Um, a Jewish ritual that you think is underrated or that people, yeah.
Blessing one's children every Friday night, no matter
Mm.
where they are in the world.
So even if they're
You
not home,
don't have to be religious to do it. You don't even have to say the traditional language, but when you designate a time to bless your children every week, they might run away, and then as they get older, they wait for that blessing.
yeah, it's beautiful. A book that changed your life.
Um, oh gosh, there's so many. Kohelet,
Beautiful.
Ecclesiastes.
which I haven't read your book on it yet, but it's sitting on my shelf.
It,
I'm excited to read it.
it was such a beautiful project to be, also as a book writer, I think a lot about long-term projects.
Right.
I trust the process when today's not working,
I'm
I'm not stopping.
gonna have to bring you back for a round two just to talk about, like, we could have a whole conversation just on writing as two
Love
writers.
it. Love it.
I would love that. And what is your favorite prayer right now? Or do you have a favorite prayer?
When I took on a serious leadership role some years ago, I started to say, the beginning of Kriya Shema Lamita, to be able to forgive, to go to sleep in a state of forgiveness.
Oh,
So I actually think that, and the Mishnah Berurah says that you'll lengthen your life. I don't know if you'll lengthen your life or you won't shorten your life by carrying all these insults, but I think there's a lot of pull and push in leadership roles and you meet difficult people and but you got to go to bed every night in a state of forgiveness and a state of hopefulness. We tend to emphasize the modani, how we start the day, but of course, nothing has happened yet that day,
right.
right? I think the real genius is getting to the end of the day and being able to say, I live in a state of purity and spirituality with my faith and hope intact.
Yeah. Wow. And it goes back to what you were saying also about the worry time. As you were saying it, I was thinking about how the Alter Rebbe, I don't remember which chapter of Tanya he discusses this, about the importance of using Kriya Shema as an opportunity to do your cheshbon nefesh for the day and be able to let it go.
Yeah, let it go. Let it go.
My night is going to look very different tonight then.
All right. Awesome. Call me in the morning. Let me know how it goes.
Okay,
It's
well, thank you so much.
Erica, it's been delightful talking to you and really keep up the good work. It's really sacred and really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to Heart to Heart. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know there is hope and help is within reach. Since 2019, the Long Short Road has been walking alongside at-risk individuals, offering trauma-informed programs, a non-emergency hotline, and a community that fosters healing. No one has to go through this alone, and we are here for you. Discover how the Long Short Road is changing lives. Visit www.thelongshortroad.com or email us at info@thelongshortroad.com to learn more. You can be part of this mission. Sponsorship opportunities for Heart to Heart are available. Honor a loved one, support your community, and help us make mental wellness resources accessible to those who need them most. Until next time, remember, love and connection are the greatest healers. This is Lee Yaffe reminding you, hope is here, healing is possible, and you are never alone. Together, we're walking this long, short road to a brighter future.